All right, Sean, I have a question. If I'm looking to add torque to my J Series engine, I hear online about spacers, about runners. What information could you provide to me that will give me what I'm going after?
Yeah, actually that's a really good question. A lot of people are always confused about whether they should run a spacer or not run a spacer. So what I have here in front of me is I have a J32 A2 intake manifold and I have a J35 A3 or A4 intake manifold. Actually, the biggest difference you'll notice between these two manifolds right away is going to be the horns that you see on this one. Both manifolds have the horns, but their actual runner length is being changed right here by Honda. What you're basically going to learn is that the longer your runner, the lower your power curve is going to be, or the more torque you're going to gain at low RPM. This J32 comes in like an Acura TL Type S, whereas this one with the longer runners comes in a bigger vehicle like an Acura MDX or even like a Honda Pilot, something that is pretty heavy. So what Honda is essentially doing here is by increasing the runner length, they're able to increase the low end torque. Their goal isn't always necessarily wide open throttle, because a lot of guys think, well, low end torque is always going to be there. But for example, both these manifolds, we sandblasted these, so we removed what we have in here, what would have been a butterfly flap. We sell a P2R block off plate that's going to actually remove that, because for what we're doing, it doesn't really serve us any purpose to have that butterfly in there. A lot of guys are under the misconception that it adds more low-end power. It's an accurate statement, but Honda actually did it only for low RPM at partial throttle. Once we go wide open throttle, there really is no benefit of having that flap in there. What that brings me to is, depending on the vehicle, Honda sometimes runs, if you flip these over, what you'll notice is your air is basically comes in from here, it comes out of here. This goes into your lower intake manifold, which then feeds the cylinder head. So our runner length starts from the cylinder head and ends right here at this point. So that overall distance is going to be what we call runner length. So you can get the increased torque multiple ways. You can get it by increasing the length here, or you can also get it by installing an intake manifold spacer and creating runner length there. Or you can do a combination of both. It all depends on how low you want your power to come in. We also, we make different height spacers so that we can actually play with the power curve. This one's a little bit thinner. We generally use it a little bit more for clearance, for the guys who have bigger injectors and stuff like that. We have this one, which is the design that we've used the most. I think the automatic guys really benefit from those a lot, because a lot of their time they're in that 3/4 throttle area at 3,000 RPMs, 4,000 RPMs, and it makes the car feel a lot quicker overall. It makes for a better driving experience, shifting lanes or anything like that. If you're drag racing, to be honest, you're probably gonna wanna go as short a runner length as possible, because anything you do for performance is always gonna shift your power curve higher in the RPM band. This is the J32 manifold. We actually CNC ported this one, so we actually made the runners a lot bigger. And by going bigger on a manifold, you're always going to shift your power curve a little bit up as well too. So there's no real reason to add spacers and stuff in a drag car situation, because you're just looking wide open throttle, high RPM, shift it high and keep your power up there. Street cars, definitely spacer, thermal gaskets, just creating a little bit more runner length is really good. The Honda makes a spacer that's really tall. Honestly, those are not really good for anybody outside of an SUV, because it shifts the power curve so low that it robs you out of a lot of horsepower at wide open throttle and at high RPM.
So if I'm building my car for, let's say, road course racing, what would be the best route for me?
When we're dealing with these two manifolds here, I would definitely say the J32 manifold, by keeping our runner length a little bit shorter, and our thin spacer, if your hood clearance allows for it, that works out really well. Because for a road course, you need a lot of power also on partial throttle, not just wide open throttle. You can't play with it based on the tracks. Like if you know it's a track that's gonna be wide open a lot of the time, then you can just use no spacer. But if you're gonna be a combination of partial and wide open, I would definitely try to keep the runner length a little bit shorter. And if you want just a little bit more low end torque, I would add a spacer in that situation, but I'd use our thin 12.5mm spacer.
Sounds good. Hey man, you answered everything I needed answered. I have no further questions. I appreciate your time.
If you want to learn more on what is beneficial and what works best for your setup, please write in the comments, ask your questions, and we'll try to get you covered in the next video.